Hi, welcome to our show, Umbrellas of Hope. We are committed to enrich the life of members of the veteran and military community by connecting them to the resources that they need. We advocate for professional and entrepreneurial opportunities and facilitate conversations of hope, empowerment, and creativity to reduce military and civilian transition difficulties and to help our veteran and entrepreneurs families to thrive. Hi, I'm Niurka, your host. We invite you to be part of this journey as we, together, bring a positive change on new beginnings, opportunity, and success. Our new mini series will be introducing the art of business to share with you how it can enhance your life, your community, and your future. So stay tuned. Now, let's welcome Dr. Judy Butler. So she's here to talk to us about the art of telling our story. So stay tuned. Hi, Dr. Judy. Can you tell me how can the story of an average person be considered art?
Storytelling in and of itself is an art form. And so a lot of people think that their story is boring or it's not important. And they think, well, I'm just an average person. But if you go to the movies, which is another type of storytelling and another type of art form, it's all about seeing an ordinary person overcome extraordinary odds in their life. And we all overcome stuff every day. Having a child and raising a child, especially in this crazy world we're in today, is an art form. And we mess up and we make mistakes and we think, well, I can't tell that. Those are the things that make it beautiful, is how did you overcome the trials, the tribulations, the difficulties? And other people want to know that they're not alone in their life, in their journey, in their problems. I don't want anybody else's problems, but if I can see and hear the story, I mean, some of the greatest stories ever, The Wizard of Oz, this young girl goes on a journey because she's upset with her family. She's mad. She's a teenager. She's upset, and so she leaves home and she goes on this journey, and it's a fantastical journey. And we all do that. And all of us have a story to tell. But most of us don't know how to go about doing that.
That's awesome. And yeah, we all we go through so many experiences in life
Mm-hmm.
that you can break them apart and you can do so many spin-off, right? Like I
Yeah.
love spin-off series.
Okay.
Uh, so that'd be pretty awesome. Um, how do you think we should record our life story?
Well, one of the things that we do at the Guardian's Gift is we help people tell their life story. That's a big component of what we do. And what I've learned over time is that after someone passes away, their family members almost always say, God, I wish I had more time to ask a specific question. Or I wish I knew more about my mom, my dad, my grandparents. And after the person's gone, you can't have that conversation any longer. And they take that information with them to the grave. I was working with a man who had stage 4 cancer, and we got his life story told. And when they opened up his Guardian's Gift book, his life book, at his memorial service, his children, his grown adult children, looked through it, and they said, "Oh my gosh, you know things about our dad that we never knew." And there were things they learned from his storytelling. But then there was a sadness because they had waited till he passed away to know this. So they weren't able to ask questions. They weren't able to have a conversation with him about the things that he'd done in his life and why it was important to him or not, and how that affects them. Because our stories, your story, my story, our stories affect other people. They affect our children, because they're about our decisions, our choices. They affect our grandchildren. And so sometimes life is so busy, we don't have time to, stop and have a conversation. But at the Guardian's Gift, we encourage people to tell their life story. And that's the way it's set up. We ask a question, and then we allow them to fill in the blanks, and we help them flesh it out. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
That's amazing, and that's so true, right? I can think of the times I have a conversation with my dad, and all the things that he told me, or
Mhm.
the snippets, and then he goes away, and I don't get the whole story. So that's also,
Right, right. And there's things you probably would like to ask, things that you'd like to know, I'm assuming.
oh yeah, like I only met my grandparents. I didn't meet my great grandparents and anybody else before, and I get to find out that I'm and descendant from people that fought for independence in Cuba. That's amazing,
That
you
is
know.
amazing.
So
See, that's a wonderful story. That's part of who you are. That's the thing about these stories that we tell or get people to tell, is that it's about who you are. And how did your family fight for independence? That speaks to your fighting spirit. That speaks to who you are. You got that in you. That's part of your DNA. That isn't that beautiful?
yeah, it's amazing, and all the odds they had to overcome because back then there's not they didn't really have any real weapons, so they only had their work weapon to fight
Mhm.
against the Spanish. They had rifles and they had cannons and they have everything, and they won and they fought for 10 years, took a break, and then fought another 10 years with that.
Wow.
But
And
that's amazing. Uh-huh.
that is amazing. And that speaks to, what I hear in that is there's, they're tenacious. They don't give up, you know.
No.
Where does that show up in your life? How is it that you've started this business and you're growing this business, so you don't give up. So that came from somewhere. They were focused on a goal. They were focused on how they could get this independence for themselves and their families and their culture and their country. And you're focused on helping your people, your family, and the Cubans in your life and other people too. But that speaks to who you are. That story, and that's just one story. Think about how many stories there are in a person's life. I lost you. You're muted.
I mean, like, yeah, I can think of so many other stories that it add up, right? It make you who you are, um,
Yes.
and it inform your decisions in life.
Hmm.
So one thing that I keep hearing that you keep talking about is the guardian. Can you tell me a little bit more about it and how can anyone become a guardian?
Well, the Guardian, the reason that we have created this name for our business, the Guardian's Gift, is that when someone creates their legacy, and that's what we call it, it includes an estate plan, but it's about legacy. And when you tell your story and you add in the legal, financial, medical, all the different pieces and parts, you create a legacy. And when you do that, you are actually the guardian of that information. That information belongs to you, so you are guarding it. And it's your choice or not to disclose that. You can either tell the story or you can take it with you to your grave. But when you are guardian of the legacy for your family, then you give it as a gift. It becomes a gift when you share it. And it is beautiful art. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so when you become the guardian, and we teach people how to become the guardian of their own legacy for their family, and anyone can do it. Anybody can become a guardian. You can become a guardian. I am the guardian of my legacy. But it's the most important piece of that is actually executing it, actually doing it. Because I got all my stories, but unless I tell them and I share them with my family, then it becomes a moot point. So my whole purpose, my whole passion in life is to help people, to help families tell their story and pull all their legacy parts together, their legal documents, their financial information, their health information. Because health, people want to know, well, did I inherit high blood pressure or heart disease? Did I inherit that from my mom or grandmom or whatever? And it's about actually getting that. And it becomes overwhelming when people try to do it by themselves. And then they say, well, that's too much, or I don't know how, or it takes too long. And so they discount it, they disregard it, and they don't do it. And then they pass away, and their family's left with questions, with making hard decisions and choices that they ought not to have to make, because they need to be able to grieve. For my own personal self, my father is the catalyst behind the Guardian's Gift. We had to go through a lot of stuff because he had dementia to take care of him, caregiving, and all of those things. And at the end, I was so exhausted. I was worn out from the caregiving. I was worn out from the grief and the sadness and going through the dementia journey with him. And I couldn't even cry. I was just really just beat up emotionally, mentally, physically. And so the Guardian's Gift is about giving people a very easy, simple way of doing all that. And that's what this is about.
And that's amazing. That's so much needed right now, right? And
Yes.
we don't like to think about the aftermath of, you know, but there's something that's certain in our life. We are going to pass,
Yes.
you know, you know, a day we live every day. We die once. And what happened afterward, it makes all the difference. It makes all your difference for your children, for the people
Mhm.
that know you, for the people that mourn you. And when you kind of inform them, um, it makes them easy,
Mhm.
and it help you leave a lasting legacy that they
Yeah.
can look back at you, at your life, and be proud.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and there's comfort in that.
There
So
is comfort.
they're even with the grieving, because uh even if you didn't like things almost every day, you still got to love them, and you still got to mourn them.
Mhm.
um you're going to do it with a coming from a way of comfort.
Yes. And that is one of the most healing and comforting things that a person can do for their family, is to have all of this stuff in order so that their family doesn't have to deal with it. I run into people every day. Well, not every day, that's kind of hyperbole, but I run into a lot of people, and after their loved one has passed on, has died, they discover things like that the person didn't have any life insurance. And the adult children thought, oh, well, mom or dad have insurance to pay for the funeral. Or they have, legal documents. And sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. And so then there's an anger that comes up because, well, I thought they had this. Now I've got to pay for the funeral, or I've got to take care of this problem, or I have to. And families tell me a lot, when everything is in order and there's such peace of mind, and it just feels loving, it feels beautiful that you cared enough about me to do all of that and take care of that so I don't have to.
It is a burden, and it's not cheap. It's,
Right. It's very expensive.
it's
It cost me $35,000 one year to look after my parents.
yeah, that will set anybody um, back big time.
Mhm.
Um, because we all got bills, we all got expenses. So grieving, and then on top of that, having another bill to pay, that's it's not
Yeah,
fun. It doesn't make it a lot easier.
right.
So I think it's very important what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm passionate about it. I want to reach at least 1 million people in the next 2 years. I'd like to see 1 million people create their legacy and share it with their family while they're still alive.
And let me tell you, I love the name of of your program, the Guardian Gift, because it is a gift that you're giving out to your family.
Yes, it is.
It fits. It's amazing. You know.
Yes.
So tell me, how does someone become a guardian for the family?
Well, the first thing would be to, reach out to me, and we will determine what level of help or assistance you need, and, help you figure out how to tell your story. Like I said, this is online. People can go online and do it themselves at theguardiansgift.org. Um, but if they're uncertain about what they need to do, they can call me. My number is 404 900 6923. They can email me, Judy at theguardiansgift.org. And I'd love to just be able to guide them and help them determine, do they just need to do it themselves? Speaking of that, there's one little sidestep here about that is sometimes senior adults are not very tech savvy, and they have a little bit of difficulty with computers and stuff. So, one of the most beautiful things that I suggest is to have a grandchild. Actually, they get the guardian's gift. The question comes up, they bring it up on their computer, and there's a question. And the first question is, when were you born? And have the grandchild ask the senior adult, their grandparent, the question, and then type it into the computer for them. And it actually creates this interaction, this relationship, and it really makes it grow and blossom. And it's absolutely wonderful to see when a grandchild helps their senior adult grandparent become the guardian. So we would love to help people with that and help them walk through it, figure out what they need, and get them set up to tell their story, make sure all their legal stuff is in order. And if they don't have it, we can help them get it, and talk about health, talk about their end of life and their memorial service. But that's basically it, because they already have the story. They just need to know how to tell it.
And that's awesome, because one of my fondest memories, my grandfather from my mother's side, he died when I was 4 years old,
Um,
and he was a poet. So he will make up stories out of the start in a moment, and those
mhm,
are some of the fondest memories I have. Is having
right.
conversations with him, and he telling all these beautiful stories and poetry.
Mhm.
Uh, we want to give that as a gift to our children, because they will never
Yes,
forget. They
right.
will never forget.
And if you don't write it down, if you don't record it, guess what happens? It vanishes.
It does, you
So,
know.
one of the funny story, my grandfather told stories too, but mostly they were to scare me. He told scary stories. And he talked about the Whamper cat when I was a kid. And I'm like, what is the Whamper cat? And my eyes would get big. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this the Whamper cat's going to get me. I got to behave. And that's the whole purpose of the story, was to make me behave. Um, but you know what? I actually, as an adult, when I started doing some genealogy research, I looked up Whamper cat, and there actually is a myth, and it's a universal myth about a thing called a Wampus cat, and it comes out of Europe. And I was like, oh, so Grandpa was telling me a story that connected me to my heritage out of Europe. So I'm just wondering how your grandfather's beautiful stories and poetry and all of that, how do those stories connect you back to Cuba?
Well, it does give me. I like to think I'm kind of like a mix between entrepreneur and a creative person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of my biggest passion always been to tell poetry. I'm not very skillful at it, uh, but I love poetry. That's one thing that talks to my soul,
Yeah.
and
So
it's all for
see,
him. Yeah.
so there's a connection there.
Yes, it definitely is.
So I encourage you, you need to tell your story and get it down. How did you get into business? How did what are your memories about your grandparents? Or what are your memories about growing up and your best friend? How did when did you fall in love? Um, your first heartbreak, all of those things. And all of that, those are questions that we ask and help people tell their story. Now, let me just say, there's some people that come into this and they go, well, I've got things I don't want my family to know. Well, the thing is, they're going to know some of it, whether you like it or not, sometimes. So it's better if you tell the story and tell it your way.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a very enlightening and entertaining conversation. I hope everybody that's watching can see how our legacy can be art. How, we all have the power to become the guardians of our history and our family's history.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
I I need to start writing my down my stories. All it's time. It's time to tell your story. It's time to share it. Think back about your own life and how many times you had to make a decision, and how many times that brought a totally different plot twist than what you planned. How many lessons learned you had. Why are you not sharing them with your family, with your children? Why are you not having those conversations with your family, with your grandparents, your children, and keep it going? I tell you something. Have you heard of a very famous a- author? She had a wild imagination, so she wrote lots of books. Her name was Agatha Christie. I read most of her books. I'm a fan. But one of the books I enjoyed the most was actually her autobiography. where she talks about her own life. Pretty wild and pretty interesting. She did everything. She was a archaeologist. She went in so many different adventures. And it reflects on her books because she brought a lot of those adventures and a lot of those journeys into those classic of literature. Think about Anna Frank, her diary, and that very sad story that her life told. Somebody was able to publish it and make it into a book. How many other stories have you read that inspire you? I think it's time. It's time to tell your own. It's time to share it. And it's time to be the guardian of those that are dear to you, your parents, your grandparents, and have this conversation with them. But there's still time. Still time to tell your story, their story, in your own way. How meaningful, how impactful would that be? Let me know when you start writing your story. Hashtag Umbrellas of Hope.
A good leader always explains the why behind the task because he's trying to develop his subordinates or his employees or her to buy into the vision, right? He or she's trying to inspire them, so they have to understand it. Whereas a manager is going to explain the how to get something done.
A lot of people can.
Can you show us the
No, you are
Yeah, let
going
you
to
do it.
show us
We know exactly.
because you were what branch again?
Army.
Oh.
Okay, you're gonna go with. You're gonna get yours while you're at it, and oh yes, video is coming.
Be prepared. You're gonna be tagged.
And I can color.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
you can.
Color whatever spot you want.
I hope you have and will continue to enjoy this journey in creativity with us. In today's world, where artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, advancing science, and autonomous vehicles is our new normal, creativity has never been more important. This new miniseries of Umbrellas of Hope was created in order to inspire you and empower you by giving you the creative confidence to redesign the world around you, to create new solutions that are invaluable for today's society, powered by your vision, your own unique talents, and limited only by your imagination. Our world, our society, our future needs you.